Alrighty, we are almost, it's going to be October 1st when you're listening to this, most likely. This is the PFF Forecast. We have a really fun episode in store for you today. We're going to talk, of course, about the game that is being postponed, and I don't know, we're probably going to get some news while this is happening, so we'll try and keep that as current as possible. We're going to do the lock of the week, and then we have a fun interview. So we're going to pick up, this summer we did a bunch of interviews. We're going to try to do some more as we go through the season, and we're going to start off with a little pod-on-pod communication, a little conversation here with the Deep Dive Pod guys. So it'll be a lot of fun, but let's rock. All right, it's just me and you to start, because we need to hash out the lock of the week.
We have business to attend to.
We have business to attend to. We have a record on the line here. We're 3-0 to start the season, and we need to keep it rolling. And we also have this situation where, like, the Titans and Steelers are getting postponed. The game's getting postponed. What are your immediate thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's the best, I think it's probably the best outcome we could have imagined. I know Brad Spielberger, our cap guy, was saying, they could move the Ravens-Steelers game to a different week to accommodate all the buys and stuff. But I would just assume you get this game out of the way, because there's obviously knockoff effects that you can have later on. If they do play on Tuesday, it would be the second NFL game that's been played on a Tuesday. I have some trend zones for you here.
Please feed me. I'm hungry.
The Vikings played. This is the 2010. This is the year that I stopped being a Vikings fan, basically, because in the week after the dome collapsed, they postponed to Monday Night Football, played the Giants in Ford Field in Detroit, and then the following week they had a game in Philadelphia that was so snowy they moved it to Tuesday. So I believe it was Al and Chris on Tuesday Night Football. Philadelphia Eagles were 14.5-point favorites. They were starting Michael Vick, who is having an MVP-like season. The Vikings, fresh off of Brett Favre basically dying on the TCF Bank field the previous week, started Joe Webb, and they were 14.5-point underdogs. And the Vikings won outright, 24-14. So 2 touchdown underdogs on Tuesday Night Football are not only 1-0 ATS, but they're 1-0 straight up. That's the trend zone.
Have never lost.
They've never lost. So underdogs on Tuesday Night Football have never lost. The under hit in that game, under 44.5. So unders are undefeated in Tuesday Night Football.
What a beautiful thing.
What a beautiful thing. So that's the trend zone for today's pod.
That's fantastic. My take on this is that if you can't play the game Tuesday, that you have to have some sort of punishment. We talked about this with Chris when he was on. There has to be some punishment for being an idiot. Like, you can't just say, hey, you guys, got coronavirus, you were reckless, whatever it was. Maybe you got in an accident, but whatever. You just don't get to play the game at some other later date, right? The Titans, in my opinion, should be forced to forfeit the game if they can't play it. Now, I'm not saying that they should. I'm saying the first recourse would be, hey, go get some practice squad players to play.
Yeah.
But to me, there has to be a line drawn, or else you're going to have guys going, oh, look, they got in, didn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, and it was pretty, other than Clay Travis living in Tennessee, there was a number of reasons why it was going to be Tennessee. Remember Isaiah Wilson, he got caught at, he and Darius and Evans were at a party.
There are videos everywhere of what Nashville looks like.
And Isaiah Wilson also, got a DUI. Like, they've been, and I think, like, as a positive person, I view this as a possible positive thing, in the sense that, like, this is a wake-up call. I mean, everybody's been stroking the league for months, saying, oh, look, it worked. All this hard work is paying off. And, we had this scare with all those positive tests out of that one lab. But for the most, and then we had AJ Terrell for the Atlanta Falcons that could probably use him the other day. And, but this is the first real thing that's impacted games, other than preseason games. And I think from it probably centers everybody and says, look, like, if you want to have a season, you actually have to follow this stuff. If you don't want to have to play on freaking Tuesday Night Football, you're going to have to, center yourself here. But of course, the NFL, it was going to be funny if they didn't practice all week and had to play on Sunday. At least they'll get some practice in. But I'm pretty. I wonder what happens to my Pittsburgh plus 1.5 bet that's now -2 that we talked about on the forecast on Monday morning.
All right. Why don't we get started with the lock of the week?
Okay.
There were a couple that we talked about on the Sunday night pod where I'm not sure there's as much value as we'd initially hoped. But I do want to start off. I'll start off with one. And this is, I'm just curious to get your take on it because, so it's Lions Saints over 54. And I actually initially hated this idea. I thought it was an under game. I was like, oh, maybe we'll get an under. But our model kind of likes it. And the more I think about it, defenses just aren't, they're at the mercy of the offenses in these games. The New Orleans Saints playing on the road, it's not really going to matter. It's inside. There's going to be no fans. Drew Brees definitely looked better than he did a couple weeks ago against the Green Bay Packers. They put up some points. And if you're telling me that the Detroit Lions are the team that slows down Alvin Kamara, you are out of your mind.
I was told, though, that due to their Senior Bowl prowess, that Jelani Tavai and Jarrad Davis were two of the best young up-and-coming linebackers in the NFL. Was I led astray by that comment?
I think you were bamboozled.
I was bamboozled?
Anyways, what are your thoughts on that?
The Saints' defense is better than they've shown the first couple weeks. But I don't hate it. I mean, here's the thing. Detroit, with another week of Kenny Golladay, TJ Hawkinson made some plays the other day. Jesse James made some plays the other day. My concern is that Adrian Peterson is going to get 20 carries.
Oh my God.
And would you want to lose an under?
How much would that tilt me? A lot.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Let's
Matt
move
Patricia over is just like, it's not something I'm really
I get
it.
Okay, give me one.
Okay, look. The Baltimore Ravens laying 13 in Washington. Okay, here's the thing. It was 14 earlier this week. We saw how the Ravens did the other night poorly. Washington's finally home after 2 games on the road after winning at home in week 1. The Ravens are the king of non-Super Bowl Super Bowls. And I feel like this is like a game. I think the Ravens hang 50 on the Washington football team. No Chase Young. Lamar Jackson out to prove that the other day was a fluke. All that kind of stuff. I know it's squarish to lay the points there, but
no, I love it.
Our model likes it, and
let me tell you why I love it. Do you remember a couple seasons ago when maybe it was 3 seasons ago?
Oh yeah, the Miami New England game.
Everyone's like, you can't take 14-point favorites. It's like, why?
Yeah.
You can do whatever. This is the perfect spot. The Washington football team is so bad. Dwayne Haskins.
I think they're bad concentrated at one point.
Well, they're so bad at the point where the Ravens can really take advantage. For every reason that the Chiefs beat them is the same reason why the football team is going to struggle, which is that when you blitz 55% of the time, Dwayne Haskins is going to throw 4
and
interceptions.
And your corners are good enough to make the quarterback pat the ball. When it's Pat Mahomes, it's a different thing.
It's a different thing.
Than when
Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce are running routes versus
Sammy Watkins underneath, by the way.
Versus Terry McLaurin and just no one else. I do like this quite a bit.
The other thing is the Ravens are pretty healthy.
They were embarrassed. Here's the other. Let me tell you one other point that I really like. John Harbaugh was not himself in that game.
Right.
And to me, he is the type of guy that goes back, learns from it, and
that was the only thing
coach.
About that game that I was fundamentally worried. Because here's the thing. Kansas City is the best team in the NFL, and they were going into that game anyway, right?
Let's let the records show.
You're a Seattle guy.
No, let the record show that I was the one who said Kansas City was still the best team in the NFL. And you put the Baltimore Ravens at number 1.
I did.
I was the one that wanted to take Kansas City as the lock of the week. And for your emotional hedging, I allowed us not to. I just want that to
I did drive to another state to lay more on Kansas City. But you're right. No. You're right. But the thing about Kansas City, Baltimore is so we have Kansas City. If you get a PFF Edge subscription, you go to our power rankings tool. We have Kansas City as 2.8 points better than the Ravens. I think that raw power number is enhanced by the matchup. The Chiefs are the only team I feel like that can exploit a defense the way maybe Seattle could, but can exploit that Ravens defense. A defense that not only rushes a ton of players, but makes you hold on to the football because coverage is so good. Washington's not that team. We have Washington as 4 points worse than the average team. Home field advantage here is going to be, I think, you got in trouble a little bit for saying literally nothing. I think here with the geographical, the travel is really what.
When did I get in trouble for
that? The Chiefs Chargers one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I think this one is
that game did not go wrong because of the home field.
Right.
Get out of here.
But I think in this case it's almost literally nothing because the geography is nothing, and then the fans, even if Washington had fans, it would almost always be Ravens fans because currently no one goes to their games. So you have a lot going here that I think a normal handicap is just going to be like, you sort of throw them out. And the Ravens are, again, a team like they're the team that I worry about getting backdoored less than anybody, right? So that's my choice. I like that game the most out of all of them.
Okay. I do very much like that game. I will give you my best rebuttal to that. And that is my New England Patriots.
Yeah, Cameron. Let my Cameron go.
Mr. Cameron Newton and the New England Patriots in Kansas City as 7-point underdogs. Now, Kansas City came out. They stomped all over the Baltimore Ravens. I understand why you'd be worried about them. But the New England Patriots provide something that I think the Baltimore Ravens don't, which is Bill Belichick and his ability to scheme a defense a little bit better than I think just about anyone in the NFL. And Cam Newton, who is throwing the ball really darn well. And 7 points is just a share too many. I think New England keeps this one close.
I got New England at plus 7.5 on the pre-flop, early week. Not pre-flop, but look ahead. I was expecting to be vindicated on this because on Monday you were like, hey, I like this play. And I'm like, I don't think we should write it up. I think it gets to 7.5 because I think the Chiefs are going to be better than what we expect. They were, and it isn't.
It's still 7, I know.
And it was interesting. I was on a pod with Rufus Peabody, who was on Kevin's pod the other day, and he was saying, look, there's no downside to liking New England now because the Chiefs could get blown out by the Ravens, and this is going to get to 6.5, and there's not a whole lot the Chiefs can do. And I sort of came around to that opinion, but then when I saw how well the Chiefs played against the Ravens, I thought, okay, this could get out to 7.5. It hasn't gotten there. Do you think it does? Because that would be my pushback here is I think you could almost get a better number.
Well, it is juiced a little bit on some at some books.
The books that we used to know?
The books that we used to know.
Plus 7's minus 120.
Yeah, so
you can lay the points.
Yeah.
Whereas what is Ravens minus 13 against football team is minus 110. So it's basically the true number there.
So I don't know, man. I have a lot of faith in what Cam Newton and the Patriots are doing right now. And I don't think it gets to 7.5.
No, in fact, it probably gets to 6.5 before it gets to 7.5, which baffles me. I as a square Chiefs fan, almost would bet the 6.5 because my issue is, so here's the thing with New England that I struggle with. New England, over 50% of their air yards go to one guy, and it's similar in the fact that the Ravens have a similarly concentrated passing game, right? Actually, more so, right? Because they had Andrews, who the Chiefs neutralized pretty well, and Marquise Brown, who they neutralized. Otherwise, it's Willie Snead, who I know some people think is valuable, but it really isn't. And then Miles Boykin, and where's New England going to go if Tyrann Mathieu locks down Edelman in the slot? Where do they go?
I mean, who's covering outside?
Well, they have Ward, who came back. L'Jarius Sneed broke his collarbone, so that's a struggle. But then
Charvarius Ward is your guy.
Yeah, he's a good corner.
Yeah.
I mean, who is he?
I'm not worried about defenses in today's NFL.
Yeah, but who's New England? Who is New England going to throw to? I agree.
Julian Edelman.
Okay, but that
are they going to shadow him with?
But that took a secondary that lost Marquise Blair mid-game, lost Quandre Diggs to a suspend. They kicked him out of the game in the first quarter. Seattle's defense is fundamentally worse than the Chiefs. You don't think so? Who rushes the passer for Seattle? Me?
Sure, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you that defense matters less this year for sure. But are you worried that we're looking at two teams at the top of their market, and the Chiefs? I feel like the Chiefs are a little bit less repelled to the top of their market than New England with Cam. Cam is a far more volatile player than Mahomes in good ways and bad ways, but
hasn't been this year.
Yeah, but that's my point. It's I'm wondering, are you buying? Because the fact of the matter is, Kansas City blew out what most people thought was the best team in the NFL Monday, and the number didn't move at all, which shows a ton of respect on the side of New England. Do you want to buy into that further than, let's say, the Ravens, who lost a point in the point spread or at least a half a point in the point spread to the Washington football team of Landover, Maryland? I don't think so.
I'm just saying, I understand why you don't want to bet for or against your Chiefs. Maybe we should just take Chiefs games off of.
Well, look, last week the Detroit Lions play was perfect, don't you think?
Yeah.
Because it was a game where everybody, I was just on Ross's podcast. He's like, "There's no way I'm fading Arizona at this rate. They're amazing." And it's well, no team is ever this good or this bad. And I think the same thing's kind of but when you have the Chiefs and New England, I feel what would you have made the spread in week 1?
Not knowing anything about the Patriots at that point, probably 8.5.
And I agree with you that Newton's probably been worth 1.5 increase. Not only, but we had a decent prior on him.
I think here's the thing. I think if I were making this line, what did I guess on Sunday? 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not overly excited about it. It's also at 7, probably gets 6.5, and I don't want to give our beautiful listeners.
Yeah, you don't want to have them betting into plus 120.
I don't like to do that. Okay, let's run through a couple more before we have Drew and Andy on here. Give me another one.
Okay.
Your Jags not making it?
I know. Well, we have them at 3.5 early week. We also got good movement, by the way, if you listen to our Monday show. We got good movement on San Francisco, a full point. Mm-hmm. We got a full point on the Packers as well of value. We got a half a point on Buffalo. Those have gobbled up or even moved in the opposite direction because they went through key numbers.
You're welcome.
What about Cleveland plus 4.5?
Okay. So didn't we we talked about this on Sunday night, which is the Cowboys are getting all this shit for not running the ball with Zeke. Of course not. They were down. They were losing. You're going to throw the ball. But do they react to that? I want to believe that Mike McCarthy doesn't. They go out and blow the Browns' doors off. The Cowboys, to me, have played some solid teams. The Falcons, I don't know. And so now I'm coming back to the Browns, who are just going to run the daylights out of the ball in this game.
Well, but they might have enough. So that game that they played against Washington football team went over.
They should have lost that game.
Yeah. Well, here's my take. And again, I want to get into the nitty gritty of the betting here. When the spread's 4.5, but the total's 55.5. If you're making an against the spread play, I think you're doing it wrong. I think if you're gonna back Cleveland in this game, and I'm probably showing my hand that this is not the pick of the week. Just take the 185 money line, because the number of games that land on 3 or 4 in a spread of 55.5 is less.
Yeah,
and so you're not getting as much value as you think you are. If you think that the Browns are undervalued here, then just take the money line. and deal with the variance, because this is a league. I mean, we've seen it. Look, we were on last week. We were on Carolina, we were on Cincinnati, we were on Detroit, we were on Houston. I'm trying to think of the other one, and we were on the Jets. The games that we won, the team either won out. Oh, and the Bears eventually at 3.5, 4. The games that we won on dogs, they won outright, because those games, like if you're watching that Chicago Atlanta game and that game's sitting on 3 for like the last 4 minutes of the game, and then Nick Foles throws a touchdown pass, like there's so much variance in those games that those points are less meaningful. Carolina wins outright, Detroit wins outright. Houston, which was a great bet, they're up by 1, covering the number, and what happens?
I am very well.
There's a touchdown at the end of the game and a 2-point conversion that clinches that
disaster.
Game. I think the same thing's true here. I don't like Houston. Cleveland necessarily as much as our model does, but if I did, and
would bet the money line.
I would bet the money line at plus 185.
Okay. I have one more.
Okay.
Because I like Houston as well, -4 against Minnesota, but I don't know. Our model doesn't love it.
It's tough because it's a key, right? Yes. Like it goes over. Plus, there's also the uncertainty. Minnesota is not practicing currently.
So I'm going to give you one last one. This Monday night.
Oh, don't do it.
At Lambeau Field.
This total's 58.
A beaten man and his team of wounded warriors will walk in attempting to save their lives. Dan Quinn and I can't even do this with a straight face. The Atlanta Falcons are.
Does Dan Quinn
7.5 point?
I hate talking about this.
He's made it. He's unkillable.
Yeah, he's got 9 lives.
More than that. And Julio, I'm guessing, is going to play in this game. The Packers are at the very top of the market at 7.5. Matt Ryan is still, a very good quarterback. How revolted are you by the idea of waiting all the way to Monday night and having the lock of the week be the Atlanta Falcons covering?
Where do we have Atlanta? We have Atlanta as 3 points worse than the average team. We have Green Bay at 4.5. So, if you just do straight, but we like Atlanta's got some pieces on offense, man. Like the Packers defense sucks. I don't get this. And never mind. I like the fact that I have Green Bay -6.5. Our number is 6.9, so 7.5 does show a ton of value because there's a lot of games that land on 7, especially games that are line 7 or 7.5.
Kitchen sink. But the Packers just beat the Saints on Sunday.
But it's like my kitchen sink though. Like the utensils are old and creaky, and like dude, you can't do this because. The total.
It's a great bet.
The total's 58 too.
It's a great bet.
Look, I will probably have
looking to heaven right now.
I will probably have an Atlanta plus 280 money line ticket by the time it gets to Monday. But Monday is totally about props.
Okay.
I don't like Monday. Saturdays are for the boys. Sundays for the NFL.
What is going on?
And Mondays are for props.
Are you drunk?
And Mondays are for props.
All right. Okay. Let's go with the Ravens. -13, basically at home in Washington.
Getting back on track.
I'm here for it. I love rooting for Lamar Jackson. It was tough. It was actually
it was even hard for me, a Chiefs fan, to watch.
For the first 5 minutes of the game, it was also hard, and then I realized that they were going to kick field goals and Patrick Mahomes was going to throw lasers, and then all of a sudden it became a lot easier. Okay, that is the lock of the week. And now we are going to get to our guests who are from the Whale Capper Pod. I think I'm saying this right. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm terrible with pronunciations, despite the fact that my name is a terrible name to pronounce. Drew Dinsick and Andy Molitor.
A famous Minnesotan, Paul Molitor.
I mean,
Hall of Fame baseball player.
Whatever. People butcher my name all the time.
Yeah, no, you get I think a mulligan just because of the abuse you take with your name.
People just look at my name and go, George, is that you? Alrighty, we have decided the perfect matchup of podcasts because I'm from California, Eric is from Minnesota, and we have with us the Whale Capper Pod, which also has a representative from the great state of California and the state,
the backwaters of Minnesota.
It is Drew Dinsick and Andy Molitor. Guys, this is, so if you're listening to this, you can't see. If you were watching this on YouTube, you will note that I am being just fucking trolled to an unfair level here because Drew just has the California sun in the background. Fuck. I knew you. God damn it.
George is especially complimentary of the city of Cincinnati, and not only that, but you get to go to see your girlfriend in DC, which is
even better,
a stone's throw from hell. So this will be great.
Like literally 7 blocks from the White House. Anyways, guys, thank you for coming on. How are you guys doing?
Oh, this is an honor. Absolutely love your guys' pod. This is going to be a tour de force. This is more handicapping brain power on one pod than I think they've ever assembled. Would you agree, Andy?
Yeah, this is something. This is like one of the later Marvel movies where they just bring too many characters in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we've had a bunch of NFL guests, especially this offseason, but we haven't had people who like honestly, like I always, every single week when I'm looking, okay, did we make good picks this week? I'm always on Drew's like Twitter looking at that, that cool like graphic you make about what picks you're on. And if I'm like against you on more than like a couple picks, I'm texting George being like, well, we're fucked,
So I look at that too. And I didn't know that graphic design was also your passion in addition to handicapping.
It was the easiest way to distinguish myself among the mess that is gambling Twitter.
Oh my God.
Everybody else just with the emojis and the fanfare. It's an easy way to kind of set yourself apart. But I gotta say, there's not a lot of podcasts out there that really do a good job of kind of marrying the analytics side of football with kind of decent market analysis, which is really what is at the fundamental of being a good handicapper. And you guys do it exceptionally well. And kind of in the same kind of complimentary tone, we record our pods on Sunday and Wednesday, which you guys do too. And I literally, the first thing I do when I wake up the next day is listen to what you guys have to say to see if, where we are in agreement, where we are, where we're against each other. And I think in general, through the 2020 season, it's been pretty lockstep. I remember for sure I was kind of waffling on, do I take the Lions last week? Like, this is a terrible number. Like, it's going to move, like this is a good side. Tune into the pod and you guys, you're like, oh, bet of the week, Lions, hammer. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of that. Like it was a very revelatory experience kind of hearing your take on these things. And, I appreciate it because, it's, if you are kind of stuck to your own process and too inside your own head on these sort of things, you're going to miss stuff. The market reflects the opinions of hundreds of influential bettors, and you're just one person. And if you stick to your priors too much and, you don't take in more information, you're going to get washed. So it's great to have a resource like the PFF Forecast, and appreciate what you guys do.
Eric likes to work out and watch games at the same time, and so betting on the Lions accomplishes that because the amount of sweat that the perspiration on the office floor after that game. We just started a pregame show that we do live, and I was like, I teased one of the segments that we're going to talk about the Lions. I go, Eric's favorite bet of the entire week is coming up. So I'm expecting him to go, Lions ATS, and he comes out with Lions money line, and I immediately just know, okay, here we go.
Well, the number got to 5.5.
Right. And it was great. It was great, but people watching those shows also don't understand prices at all. Yeah. So they're just like, well, did it win or lose? And it's like, listen, buddy, this is it's not binary.
And not only so more to you guys' point, one of the things that I like to you guys do multiple sports, which we don't do. And I've always found,
sir, the WNBA.
Well, sure. But that's, I don't tweet those out. I was
going to say the same thing. You have some hot WNBA takes.
Scorching. Absolutely scorching.
Yeah.
50% of the Slack messages I get from you during the off season are WNBA.
That's true. But like during the pandemic, there was nothing to bet on. And Andy, I was so appreciative of the golf bets you were giving out, and they were hot. You know,
Oh my God, it was
you
hot
went
side.
from
Oh my goodness,
you
it
went
was
from
hot
an
side.
absolute flamer on mid-major basketball, and then the worst beat of the entire year was that ending. And then we got a couple months off, and then we got golf again. And I really appreciate that, because otherwise it would have just been me DMing George about Madden Sims, which we almost lost a friendship over it.
Thank you, Andy. Holy shit. Thank you.
I'm glad I never got into the Madden Sims, although I bet there was some edge. I'm sure there was edges to be had. I knew some people who were buying extra Xboxes to do extra Sims on MMA Sims because they had legitimately found edges. It was a wild time there. That feels like 10 years ago when March Madness got canceled.
Did people know that like you could go outside?
Well, yeah.
There was a virus out there.
Yeah, it was airborne.
Oh my God.
Well,
all right.
let's talk about
Let's do some football here.
yeah, let's talk about the season here. We're 3 weeks in. What's a team that through 3 weeks that you absolutely nailed? Like, either collectively or, because me and George have disagreements and all,
I think we both have different teams. So I'm curious if you guys have different teams.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, I would have to say it's the Vikings fade largely on the basis of the the way that their secondary is playing. I didn't expect the offense to look as bad as it has, but I for sure had questions about whether Kubiak still had a fastball for today's NFL, and and how that was going to manifest with trying to integrate new just too many. They had a great draft. Bunch of good young players. They got a bunch of players I thought they drafted in the right place. Even like it overall felt like a good kind of on the fly rehaul of talent. But given that there was no offseason, no preseason, it was way too much to ask these guys to be super competitive out of the gate. And they drew a tough schedule first 3 weeks. They're true playoff contenders with kind of coherent quarterback coaching schemes. In at least in Tennessee and Green Bay, and an up and coming Indianapolis Colts team, and it's so it was not a great soft landing for a team that was integrating so many new pieces. And just through the years, we've seen how difficult it is for rookie wide receivers, rookie cornerbacks to make an impact on the field. And you shorten the preseason. The expectation that was going to manifest as a problem was probably where we were the most right. What would you say, Andy?
Yeah, and I mean, amongst that too is we were just so cold on Zimmer over the years, especially even just the last few years, how we've kind of progressively started to hate defensive-minded head coaches more and more. Like it just takes the perfect mix of the rest of the coaching staff, and just like Zimmer, I placed some Zimmer to be first coach fired at a decent number, just in case Gase, the Jets team, if Gase wins, they're not going to fire him. So Gase buys a stay of execution. I think the Falcons are not going to fire him. So I think Zimmer might end up being the first casualty. I think I got 15-1 on that, or 10-1. I'm not sure. That was a big part of it. Kubiak, Zimmer, the whole staff, and just the turnover on defense.
Great.
We hated how that defense was looking. I don't think we've ever had a team that we said like, this isn't going to be a good team that has turned out this badly.
Well, do you think like the draft industrial complex, as people call it,
Mr. Nagler's
was one of the reasons why? Because we had talked about for weeks, like, the Packers had a horrible draft, but how much is that actually going to affect this season? Not very much.
Well, literally zero, because those three guys played zero.
Those
snaps.
guys don't play ever, right? Like they barely dress in many cases.
There's a team out east that's had terrible drafts for 10 years.
Yeah.
The Patriots can't draft for shit.
Yeah, and
it doesn't matter, I guess.
Right, and you guys' point is such a good one. We found simultaneously that wide receiver and corner are two of the most valuable positions in football. But as Drew said, you can't just expect Justin Jefferson to come in and be Stephon Diggs right away. Yeah. You can't, like Trey Waynes was a disappointment as the 11th overall pick, but to replace him adequately with a bottom half of the first round and a third round pick is a hill most Vikings fans thought was an easy climb that actually isn't. Having competent cornerback play is tremendously important and difficult to achieve. And it took Trey Waynes 3 years to be that, even what he was. And the idea that the betting markets were pricing the Vikings as the favorite in that division eventually was just, I feel like a drastic overreaction to what happened in the draft.
I couldn't agree more. And you haven't even mentioned the biggest reason why I would have faded, or why we faded the Vikings as well, which is Kirk Cousins. Yeah. When has this guy ever elevated a group of other players to be better?
God, that's a good point.
Never. Like when he was in Washington, he had a bunch of talented receivers and tight ends, a great offensive line, and they were good offensively.
And Sean McVay.
And they didn't even win. They just had a good offense, you know? Like they just ran play action a lot. Zimmer 15-1 to be fired. The Vikings are 4-point underdogs to the Texans. To me, this is the perfect matchup for the Texans. Yeah. You might be cashing that.
Well, the Texans, this
are they playing the game?
It sounds the report is the
Vikings didn't have a test, right?
Well, the issue is the delay, the latency there. It's probably 2 to 5 days. So currently, it's in a good place. But their GM said that we're scheduled to get on a plane Saturday to play. So that's currently the thing. But you're right. I mean, think about Houston. This is the second year in the last 3 years that they've started 0-3. The division's better now than it used to be, but Houston doesn't think it's dead. Whereas I feel like if you're the Minnesota Vikings and you're staring up at 2-3-0 teams in your division, plus a Detroit team that might be as good as you, like you're probably, I mean, this is, they should just trade for Jameis and flame the season out because
you love that take.
Because there's nothing good for them to do. Like the NFC is so flat.
Is that the team that you think you pegged the most correctly?
Yes. The only reason I'm not saying Tennessee is that Tennessee hasn't covered a number yet.
Yeah, but 3-0 and 0-3.
Yeah.
Do you know that this is unprecedented? To go 3-0 and lose against the spread in 3 straight games never happened before.
Well, especially what's funny is that it's not like they're laying 13 every game and getting backdoored. They're laying they're laying 1.5 against Denver or 2.5, and then a point against Minnesota.
Kind of that was there.
Brutal.
Yeah. Well, Gostowski. I mean. We got kind of both ends of the variance there, right? Because if Gostowski could kick a field goal in week 1, we cover the number there. And if Gostowski can't kick a field goal in week 3, they're probably trying to score a touchdown and might cover the 1.5 against the Vikings.
The Titans have become the Falcons for me in the Super Contest, where it's like, okay, fuck, we're going to do this again.
Yeah, they won't win and not cover this week because now, I mean, Andy and I were talking about this on the Pinnacle show, but like we got Pittsburgh at 1.5 plus 1.5, and now it's 2. I think it's probably
those
closer
might
to
get
that.
Canceled.
Yeah, that would suck.
Somebody asked me about that. Maybe that's my team on the other end of the spectrum that I was most bullish on, that I'm still happy about, because I don't think we've fully seen the offense spread its wings yet. I think the Pittsburgh offense continues to get better. And, that's a team I loved before the season. And somebody asked me about getting those bets canceled. And I said, if they play this like Monday or Tuesday and they reopen it at Pittsburgh -3 and Tennessee has practiced like once, done like one half walkthrough. I'm like, I'll anything. Yeah. 3, 3.5, 4. I'd still bet Pittsburgh.
What did they do?
Price point.
I remember distinctly when the Rams Chiefs game got moved from Mexico back to LA, that game went from 2.5 to 3.5. Did they cancel the 2.5s?
No,
not everybody.
So. Not everybody.
I feel like that's probably the situation we're in, where some people might get their Pittsburgh bet honored and some might not, because there is some precedent for games moving and the numbers staying.
Yeah, this is different though, because it's just a date.
I love that you brought that up. That was one of my biggest wins in NFL regular season of all time, because I had both sides of that, and it landed on 3. And for a game to have that many points and still be decided by 3 is insane.
Dude, that game was nuts.
And the way it happened too, with the misses and the 2-point conversions, it was like, how is this possibly going to land 3? And sure enough, it did.
Well, that's what we were talking about with Browns Dallas. It's like, if you like the Cleveland side, are the 3 and the 4 worth as much now at 55.5 as they are for a game that's normally lined? And the answer is no, right? I mean, those points. I mean, you're better off sort of like shooting for variance and betting a money line on either side than you are the spread, because the 3 and the 4 aren't as key when the total's as big.
All right, real
strong
quick.
Agree, and I would even ask, isn't that game kind of a coin flip?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's really tough for you to say. That the Cowboys are that much better than any team in the NFL right now, let alone one that has as many weapons as Cleveland. So I agree with you, and I did take a little Cleveland money line this week too. Especially
where Dallas struggles, which is linebacker without Lee and Van Der Esch. I mean, Cleveland's running backs are like legit good, and even
Dallas struggles everywhere. defensively.
Yeah, right. And Odell, and I mean, and the other thing is, as far as the total's concerned, as it correlates with the spread, Mayfield's a turnover guy, right? So it might be another situation again where like you might think
kind of chunky.
Yeah, you might throw a pick six at the end, and you thought you were covering the number, and you end up losing by 11. It's like, well, I wish I would have just embraced variance and gone with the money line and lost that instead. But
that's a good point. I'm going to get my team in here because I love this question. I said the Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl, and
what's one team? So here's the team that I was the most wrong on this year.
The Dallas Cowboys.
No, I still think Dallas wins that division going away.
Yeah, but you have their over.
No, I have Philly under.
Jesus, so do I.
Philly under 9.5 was. Philly's another one we were right on. We had them as 8 wins. But here's one that I was pretty wrong on, and I was going to say Buffalo, but I think it's Detroit. You're
giving up already.
I continue to
waving the flag.
Man, the coach of the year, award is the caught good variance award, and is sure to be fired in a year and a half. And I figured that there was enough talent on Detroit to overcome some of the things that they have, deficiencies as far as coaching, as far as on the defensive side of the ball. Kenny Galladay's injury, I think, has really impacted it, but we still haven't seen the Lions be that down the field exciting team that they were prior to Stafford's injury last year. So that's the one I think I'm the most wrong on.
You're not alone. The entire universe was early and often on Detroit. Like that everybody I know has like a big Detroit to win the NFC North ticket and Detroit to make the playoffs. And I think, we talked about that. Like you said, on the Pinnacle Pod, we talked about the play calling up there, just completely stymieing an offense that could be really good. So maybe you weren't wrong on the roster, but you're wrong on what the coaching is deciding to do with that team.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, a lot of the angle for why you take the Lions in the North anyway was because it seemed perceptibly, everyone took a step back. And, you're right about the draft industrial complex kind of shading people's opinions about teams when that's like a 3-year arc, not a 3-month arc. But for sure, the Packers are absolutely, as dangerous as they were last year, if not better. So it's not looking good for Lions North. For me, the most wrong was probably the Bills, and I have an alt under on the Bears. I don't feel like I was wrong about that. I feel like they're pretty fluky that they're at 3-0 right now. But I was wrong on the Bills mostly just because I didn't understand what their team was going to look like at all. Like my perception coming into this season was this is a team that's going to have a strong defense, and if they get anything out of Josh Allen, then maybe they contend and win a playoff game in the AFC, right? Like that was like their ceiling, right? Mm-hmm. And in reality, like I have huge questions about the way this defense is performing. Massive downgrade so far, given what we've seen from them, and just in terms of performance level. And they can't generate much of a run game. Their offense is this dynamic passing offense now, thanks to Daboll, and a slight improvement in Josh Allen's accuracy. And it's like a totally different team than I had any concept of before the season started. Where now I'm worried about them. I wouldn't lay the 3, for instance, or it looks like this is going to 3.5. I wouldn't lay the 3.5 against the Raiders this weekend just because I'm not sure they can protect that lead. This is not. They don't have. Quite the strong enough defense. They don't have quite a good enough run game to put away a comfortable lead like we saw last week, 28-3. You got the Rams on the ropes and you let them back in. Like that was shocking.
Well, they're a great example of.
It felt really bad.
So it's just like the entire fabric of the Bills as sort of like who they are and what their identity is has totally changed for me in just a matter of a couple of weeks.
They're a great example of some of the things that, you guys and we have talked about, how valuable one wide receiver is, especially when he's paired with 2 guys that they acquired last year in Beasley and John Brown. That it just changes the complexion of the offense, right, Georgia? And the other thing on defense, Tre'Davious White's awesome. Their 2 safeties are great, but their linebackers were banged up last week. They were basically sticks in mud. And then their other cornerback position, their other 2 cornerback positions are huge question marks. To you guys' point that they're being exploited by the Rams offense. I will say, and to relent a little bit, Allen's passer rating when under pressure is 121. His passer rating when clean is 118.9. The 118.9 is what we didn't expect. The 121 is just noise. Yeah. So when I look at this team moving forward, I still think that Diggs and the wide receivers provide a floor that the Bills have never had, but I don't know if Allen, I mean, they're averaging 0.37 expected points per pass play, and if that regresses, like, it's going to be tough for them against, the Chiefs, for example, coming up, 2 games against New England. I don't think it's like you said with the Lions. I don't think I'm quite ready to bury this yet.
I will also say this about the whole defense thing.
In a weird way on that one.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this because, like, everyone's talking about how the Seahawks defense sucks. It's like, look, if you have a big lead, the opposing teams are going to throw the ball to try to get back into it.
Are you making another Falcons excuse?
Team I was most wrong about every year for the last 3 years, the Atlanta Falcons.
No, nobody can figure out the Falcons. You should not feel bad about that.
If the Falcons had either a head coach or a competent run game, they're 2-1 at the worst right now.
Man, they had Kyle Shanahan and they let him go. But to the to your guys' point, like the Bills. I know. The Bills defense being good is also a function of the way they've played the game. When now they're opening it up and running play action 42% of the time and scoring 30 points and a half, your defensive numbers are going to look bad because the other team's going to go YOLO ball and score some points. Same thing's happening to the Seahawks. So to me, that's just emphasis on, hey, offense is what drives the car here.
Andy, what was the team that you were the most wrong on?
It's funny. We talked about this a little. On the podcast last night. We did it early this week because Drew's on vacation soon. But the podcast power numbers that Drew derived from the look ahead lines, mine weren't exactly on with this, but it's funny if you looked at those. These numbers had Philly ranked higher than Seattle by a half point.
Shit. Just
the true power numbers that came out, and probably Seattle. Like I was cold on Seattle. They've looked great. There's still some things to be desired in some of the matchups they had. Although, I mean, I thought the Patriots were going to run them a little. Drew took the other side of that. It got a little dicey at the end. I want to see this going forward. Obviously, everything they're doing on offense is completely unsustainable. But at the same time, like, I probably had them rated too low. I had Philly lower, but it's just funny when I went back and looked at like the numbers we derived from the power rankings. Like everybody had the market had Seattle way low, and obviously Philly too high. I'd say, yeah, probably the whole NFC West. And you look at just over the course of the 3 weeks and all the teams, like there's a lot where I feel like, was I really wrong in this team, or was it the injuries? Because there's so many injuries to so many teams. So it's hard to like grade your takes on like the Niners, even Philly to a certain extent. There's been just important injuries all over. So and that's like my cop out for some of my takes. Like, injuries, I can't predict those.
That's also Eric's cop out whenever we play basketball at the Cincinnati YMCA. Hey, I'm having this shin thing.
My splints.
We haven't played basketball.
Dude, it's been so long.
I
can't. Yeah,
it's brutal.
George is missing,
open, by the way.
George is missing basketball so bad that he can't wait to lose to me again.
What would you say my all-time record against?
Yeah, you're probably 70% against me.
I think that's low. The team,
but the 30% is the 30% will drive George. George is known to throw a basketball against the ceiling when he loses to
kick,
old
throw,
dad bod me,
punch.
But,
I would say my point differential is pretty spectacular because when I do lose, they're hard.
I'm like Robert Ory out there. I win the games, the close games, and I give up on the other games.
Here's the team I was most wrong on, and that's the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I was really worried about Sean McVay adapting what he has been doing for so long, especially because of what we heard coming out of that whole segment of the NFL, which is they don't believe that Jared Goff can throw kind of this quick game look stuff because his delivery is kind of slow, and they have done a really nice job pivoting to a play action based scheme that still allows for short throws, which is very Shanahanian, right? Like Jimmy Garoppolo's ADOT is 6.5. It's not that he's checking down. They're still running a ton of play action. It's just that they're creating these shorter throws and giving guys a chance to run after the catch. This will blow your guys' freaking minds. Yak per reception. Jared Goff, 7.4.
Well, we were talking on the...
Are you kidding me?
His PACR, the percentage of basically the air yards, denominator, the real yards. It's
You explained that well.
It's like 1 point. Yeah, well, I'm lost for words here. 1.7 or something. So every air yard he throws gets turned into 1.7 actual passing yards. Do you think? Well, and that's a noisy-ish number. Here's the other thing about the Rams. I'm going to try to be more fair, I think, to your take. They beat the Eagles, who stink. I mean, they're awful. The Dallas Cowboys, I feel like that game
fatally flawed. Yeah.
That game could have been one or the other way, depending upon how that fourth down went. And then they lost to the Bills in a game where they got behind by. I mean, it takes some skill to get behind 28-3. The comeback was nice for sure.
I was not expecting the comeback.
Yeah,
the comeback was nice, and they lost on a bullshit call.
Well, and their schedule gets really easy relatively soon. I mean, we have them with a harder than average schedule, but it's not until the middle of the season before it gets really hard.
The funny thing is, I feel like I will be wrong about this team in the sense that I thought they could be really bad, but I could still be right in that they could be the fourth best team in this division. That's how good this division is, right? What's their point differential? Plus 100. You know,
the NFC West benefits by playing the NFC East, though, and they've played them a lot already. Well, the NFC East is historically horrible,
right? And it's the Jets and the Giants are so bad. I do have this is a take, though, that the Bills and the Patriots, to me, are both in the top 6 in the NFL.
Ooh.
I can't get on board with that.
I know you can't.
Here's a question.
Top 8.
I would say top 10.
Top 8, top 10.
Yeah.
Top 10 for sure.
You guys love the Saints, huh?
How?
No.
Boy.
So what would we?
2 years. Finally, after 2 years, other people are catching up to Drew Brees has a dead arm. I don't know what the hell that's.
Well, you guys.
I was
you guys
right
had
about
a great,
that too.
You guys had a great take last year, which I thought was going to play out. It didn't end up because of the Vikings, as they do, messing everything up. But you know, when he had to sit out the five weeks, like. You guys had a great take that would extend his effectiveness. Now it did until week 17. He had a great game against Carolina, and then against the Vikings, noodle arm came out, and he couldn't throw the ball over Andrew Sendejo's head. But that was, I thought, a great take, and now we're starting to see if you want to have to watch 16 games of this noodle for I don't know if he's going to make it. But where do we have? We had New England at 6, and we have Buffalo at 9. I think that's fair.
Yeah. I'm buying a little bit more into the scheme of Buffalo and that being sustainable.
Buffalo is low-key one of the most analytically sound teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I trust what McDermott has going on there. And yeah, I know that his play under pressure is going to regress, but I also just don't think there are a lot of really good teams out there.
Yeah.
I think almost every team has a flaw. And there's none of this.
The middle class is disappearing.
Yeah,
right. How has COVID-19 affected you guys' betting so far this year?
Good question.
I'll go first on this.
We killed it.
Well, during the actual pandemic, when there was no sports going on, that was the most impossibly high ROI I've ever had in my life, and it wasn't close. I'll never go through another stretch like that again, because we had just everything was information based, and we were getting information faster than other people, and just absolutely crushing the market.
The virtual Kentucky Derby.
The virtual Kentucky Derby, we knew who won before they'd broadcast it. The ESPN did the NBA 2K player tournament.
I remember that one.
Yeah. That stuff was just absolutely ridiculous. It was so
the draft.
The draft, man. The draft was one of the best, highest ROI weeks of my life, and it wasn't close. That was such one of our good friends tipped me off to 50-1 first kicker field on day 3 of the draft. And I was like, yeah, what the heck? Rodrigo, who was the Rodrigo?
He was
Rodrigo Blankenship.
He was minus 380
he was enormously an odds-on favorite, and it was like, yeah, you can't really kick long field goals, and you knew the Patriots needed a kicker, and they'll do something crazy. And sure enough, they take the alt-right guy. And, he was in the field at 50-1.
I didn't know what the tat was
crazy.
Yeah,
that was absolutely crazy. But what it's doing to me now is completely ruining my life, because there are so many sports on right now, and it is exceptionally hard to handicap the NBA Finals, the French Open, and Week 4 of the NFL in the same season. I have had enough of this. I'm super ready for a break, and it's you have to make tough decisions, because you spread yourself thin. You do a poor handicap on 3 sports, you're gonna lose your ass.
Right. And that's the hard part is when you get these, like we're learning this, like we have a player props tool that's, done fairly well, but it's one of those where if you misprice an NFL game, right, and all your props are a cascading, correlation to that, then you can get buried in just one game, right? Because, if you have a total off by 4 points and now you're betting unders on all these games and the game goes over by 20 points, like it like you said, Drew, you could lose your ass in a game. Conversely, if you get it right, then, it's obviously great, but it's harder to do that the more, plates you're trying to spin. What have you guys done with home field advantage? I know you guys talked about it on your show when, Drew, you did sort of like the matrix model where you look at all the look-ahead lines and you guys found that the market was pricing in home field advantage at a normal rate. What have you guys been doing with that?
It's low. If you look at last year and you can kind of just suss it out from where the lines went, it went down like throughout the season at kind of a rate that was higher than I guess we expected. As it just, I don't know how that happens in just like 1 year. If the information that bettors are putting into the market is what's feeding that. And I think a lot of that was as just like we joked about it every week, like home field is dead, it's gone. And, there was one wild ass regression week where home teams went like, it was with buys, I suppose. So it was like 12-2 home teams covered and it regressed because it was such an unsustainable rate. But where it ended last year is probably where it needed to pick up, like full just priors starting the season, like 1.5. Like the 3-point thing is dead. People back in the day would say, maybe Seattle at night with the crowd, that's a 3.5. Like I don't know if we'll ever get to that point again. And I think somebody needs to write a whole paper on this because I'm not sure if it's a bunch of tiny little factors. Then people talk about coaches that are getting better with travel plans and making sure using technology. I don't know if they're just using these watches that track all their their body rhythms and everything, making sure they're getting the proper rest when they're traveling, because not much of it was the fact that you're playing with the other fans booing you. Like that affects a little bit of ref bias, but it's the travel, it's the losing a little bit of practice time and all that. So I think, Drew, where are you at? Point and a half.
Yeah.
In some places it's gone.
Yeah. I would also say it's important to kind of, frame it in the right context, which is home field advantage is always about like an added win probability. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's a different point difference depending on what the line is. Right. And so people kind of look and it's like, wow, it's 2.5. Like obviously. Well, no, it's 6, 7, 8%, historically.
Going from 11 to 13. That's not the same as 1 to 3.
Yeah. Exactly.
It doesn't start at 0 and then go home field first and then everything else after. That's a great point.
Right. And so, I'm pretty close to negligible at this point in terms of the home field advantage I'm using in my model. Negligence. I made that mistake last night. I'm pretty much negligible across all home field advantage with a couple of, small exceptions. Like my adjustment to the Rams win probability last week was significant, because they had to make 2 trips across the country, back and forth from the West Coast to the East Coast. That's not trivial. And similarly, I think you have to take a serious thought to upgrading certain, road field advantage, for lack of a better word, for situations like the 49ers. Yep. The fact that they got to spend the full week in West Virginia, the whole team was basically like a mini training camp for 1 week. No other team has that. Right. And, that really helped them, I think, navigate some of the really brutal injuries. And we saw them do it last year, too. The Niners did it twice last year where they spent an extended week on the road. The whole team stayed together and they came out and gave you a full performance in every aspect of the game. And I think you have to start taking that seriously when you have that information. And, there was a bunch of teams that requested back-to-back road games across the country this year.
And they all got it.
The NFL, the NFL gave it to them. And now, the Rams get swerved by, the COVID rules, and you're going to have to follow that information, because if teams are able to kind of manifest that as an advantage when they're on those road trips, we've got a bunch coming up. Cardinals going back to back, from Carolina to New Orleans, I think. And then, or I can't remember where they go next, but the Cardinals have 2 East Coast swing. The Chargers have an East Coast swing this next 2 weeks. And if they have to go back and forth across the country, it's going to really hamper them.
Yeah, I mean, would you say home field is situational now?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Zero's the the bottom, and it's situational from there.
Yep. That's the thing is you have to put all them all the variables together. And once all those are sussed out, as you guys talked about on your show, the Cincinnati line being like what they were like +1 against San Francisco week 2 last year, and it's like it's a disaster when you don't factor in all those situations. Okay, we have to go relatively soon here, George. What game do we want to break down with? We already talked about Cleveland, Dallas.
We talked about some of these. I'm curious.
Do you want to break a tie between the two of us?
Yes, this is what I want to do.
So New England goes to Kansas City. It was at 4:00. 4:25, yes. The Buck and Aikman game.
Buck and Aikman. This is Nance and Romo.
Yeah.
Every single year
Tier 3
in their Christmas stocking, this game shows
Tier 3. Up. Okay, so what do you guys think about this game?
We were surprised at the market, weren't we? we thought the market would react differently after Monday, but the points here for sure.
Yeah, I guess my thought, realistically, and I've made this point a couple times, and some of it is narrative-y, so bear with me. But the Patriots and Bill Belichick, kind of the guys that I feel like have the pseudo blueprint to limit Mahomes. I feel like you saw it in the AFC title game 2 years ago. First half, they came out and they specifically played keep away. And then when, Mahomes finally got his chance after, putting him on ice for an entire half, the Patriots tried to counter speed with speed in the secondary. They tried to contain him in the pocket, make him kind of go through his reads instead of letting him break out of the pocket and make plays, outside, either, gaining yards on the ground or, hitting home runs with the, with the deep ball. So Mahomes is so good when he escapes pressure that you basically just have to force him to stay in the pocket, I think. And Belichick knows this. And Belichick put on a masterclass last week, by the way. Mm-hmm. He absolutely, he nailed Derek Carr to the wall. He's like, we're going to give you inside pressure. We're going to force you to try to make the check down play. And we're going to double the guy who's been identified as the check down. And it was superlative to see that, play out to perfection. And he's making a lot out of this, Patriots defense that's missing so many players in the front seven, but they are still exceptionally talented, especially as it, pertains to speed in the backfield. And I'm actually like in the back of my head, I'm waiting for this game to be kind of like the Kyle Duggar breakout game. Like he's kind of like had him like just watching film on Mahomes for like the entire 8 weeks so far that the Patriots have had organized team activities.
He has him in his lab.
He's basically gonna set him loose so that he can wreak havoc against Mahomes in this one.
So George is as happy as a clam right now because
let me make my one point to just back up what Drew is saying, because he says it perfectly. In games where Patrick Mahomes has played the Patriots, he has a PFF grade of 63.
That's not great.
In games where he has played a team not named the New England Patriots, he has a PFF grade of 95. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be terrible.
It's a big difference, Eric.
But that's a big difference.
Yeah, they did cover the one time on that Sunday night game where they came back from behind. I would say this. Belichick is really good at stopping Patrick Mahomes for half a game. I'll give him that.
So
the first half,
Patriots first half then.
Yeah, Patriots first half of the Sunday night game in 18, they were terrific. Yes. First half of the AFC title game, masterful, but second half, not so much. And then last year the Chiefs beat them outright on the road. I don't know. I tend to look, I try to not lead us down the Chiefs path because I am so biased towards them. Which is why I advise to lay off. But our models do like the Patriots plus the points. So you guys are the confirmation bias you gave George there.
I needed
could fill this room.
You can see him betting more on it just now. Well, if they can do anything like the Chargers did, and don't think the Patriots are afraid to change what they do on defense, especially what they have 6, 7, 8 guys opted out. So it's going to take a few weeks for this defense to get back, and it does it every year. It takes 3-4 weeks for them to get where they need to be on defense, and it always seems to work out. They have the coaching staff, and they're flexible. They didn't have a pass rush last year, and they figured out the rotation to get some semblance of a pass rush by just using whoever they had. The opt-outs suck, but at the same time, I think this defense, if they can do anything similar Like, just don't blitz them. The Chargers aren't good, and they still gave you the absolute game plan for what you need to do on defense. And a little bonus too, James White back in practice today. He makes a difference on the offense. And I really think this offense is going to continue to ascend as they just build it around. I mean, similar to what we saw with Baltimore last year. Build your offense around the strength of a quarterback, and you're going to have good results. It sucks because, fuck the Patriots, but they're probably going to be good again.
Well, just to add one real quick thing, the Chiefs defense played up against the Ravens. They played up. And whether you're going to get a repeat performance out of that is tough ask, especially on a short week. Chris Jones banged up.
L'Jarius
Rashad
Sneed
Breeland's still suspended. L'Jarius Sneed got a shoulder. There is enough kind of chinks in the armor here for the Chiefs defense overall that this might not even come down to what the Patriots can do to stop Mahomes. What are the Chiefs going to do to stop the Patriots?
Cam Newton, baby. He's back.
All right,
Two
fine.
former MVPs going at it.
George wins this battle. I'm
gonna come in Sunday night with a Cam outfit.
We by the way, you guys, you guys are getting this information first. Our bet of the week was Ravens -13 in Washington.
I love that.
I like that better. But yeah, I mean,
at least we have two.
We both have that ticket too.
Yeah. That'll be nice,
guys. We need to make this a regular habit.
Yeah, this is fun.
This was a lot of fun. Andy, Drew, the Whale Capper Pod. Everyone should go subscribe and listen. We do, and it helps us out. So I would just ask one thing: the next time that we do this, if you could refrain from showing me fucking California, I would appreciate it. Either invite me out there.
I'll find a nice dark
if
room.
we could do it
turn
on,
the lights low. It'll be gray. Yeah.
You have to tease us with beautiful downtown Cincinnati.
Yeah,
oh God.
Or whatever that is.
We might have to ask Chris for an once COVID's over, we could do an on-site crossover pod somewhere in the great state of California.
Wow, wouldn't that be glorious?
I love it. That sounds like fun, man. Thanks for having us.
We've got the man, the man, the myth, the legend.
1
is
second.
here.
Chris has slid into 2 podcasts in one day.
I walk by for 1 second.
Come around,
and
Chris.
I hear all the noise. My name. I've got you guys are sitting too low. You're supposed to be sitting higher. I hear it all.
And they're bad mouthing Cincinnati.
Unbelievable.
What's up, guys?
This is Drew and Andy from the Whale Capper podcast. We're talking a little gambling. A lot of fun.
In case you didn't know, this is Chris Collinsworth.
How are you guys?
Oh, I saw him the way he slid in. You can tell.
Yeah, that was unmistakable.
That's my big move. I understand that. Good having you guys.
All right, gentlemen, we appreciate it. Be well.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Good luck this week.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Of course. Keep up the great work.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.